So have you actually been able to watch any new movies with the shutdown or anything, or stream anything that you binge
Yeah,
anything that you wanted to catch up on?
it's interesting because obviously we're not getting any new content right now. So I've actually been going back through time and going, you know what? I never saw that one. I never decided to spend that $5 to go to the theater or whatever.
Yeah.
So let me check that out. And a variety of movies that probably would never even have gotten my attention if it wasn't for the fact that we had no new content that I've gone ahead and watched. And I was like,
Yeah.
you know what? Yeah, it's not too bad. There's some surprising stuff out
A
there. There's
couple
been
gems hidden in there, right? And
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot, some things that you go, that's okay, that's why I didn't watch it.
And it's also interesting because no holiday, no theme, no category has been out of bounds. I mean, it's been horror and action and drama and documentaries and just whatever you can do to fill the time.
Christmas on Mars with zombies.
You know what? Not too far from the truth. Not too far. I did watch a movie the other day that was a Christmas-based movie. I think it was called Black Christmas.
Oh.
And actually it turned out to have some a pretty decent story and setup for it. But they could have technically hosted it at any point in time of the year. It didn't have to be a Christmas related movie. It just was.
Our favorite Christmas movie, and we watch it, it's a tradition every year, is Die Hard 1 with Bruce Willis. I think that's
Yeah,
probably the best
it's a
Christmas
big
movie ever
debate.
made. Yeah.
Big debate on whether that's a Christmas movie. I'm like, how can you say it's not? It's set at Christmas. The reason why he's there is Christmas.
It's Christmas, and there's Christmas music.
Yeah. So what are you supposed to do? We never mentioned Die Hard 2 in that mix, but that's because that's just not the same. But
there's some Rocky movies we don't mention either. We just pretend they didn't exist.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But yeah, Die Hard is on my list, along with a few others. We always got to watch the classics get mixed in there. The Christmas Carol, the Miracle on 34th Street, that kind of junk. But the ones that are really I must watch is A Christmas Story, Scrooged, the Bill Murray one,
yep.
out in the late 80s. I love it too because it has a veiled reference to our current president that struck me quite funny when I watched it last time. So you go back and watch. It's not a political statement.
Yeah,
it's just amusing that they took a shot at Trump Tower in the course of the movie.
Yeah.
It was just really subtle, really quick. It was over. But in our current times, it just struck me as really funny that on that viewing.
Oh, how funny. How funny. The best, I think the best movie that I've seen since, everything's happened just came out recently. We're recording this in, late July, but Greyhound with Tom Hanks. It's a World War II movie about a naval battle in the Atlantic, which I thought was really, really well done. So that's worth checking out if you get a chance to see that online.
Yeah. And my dog is here, and she is sneezing. But she realizes that we're recording a video and decides to introduce herself.
Yeah, that's fine. Welcome.
Yeah, I actually want to watch Greyhound, but I don't have the Apple Plus set up yet. So I guess I'm going to hold off until they figure some other way to release that, or I decide to sign up for yet another streaming service.
Yeah, now it's getting a little crazy, right?
Yeah.
So Stephen, give me a little bit of background about what you do at Global Life, and maybe even a little background about what Global Life is, and give some people some context here.
So so formerly we were known as Torchmark, but we found through intense marketing that the name Globe Life started taking on some powerful connotations and having some name recognition. We got the naming rights for the ballpark in Arlington where the Rangers play. We started doing some associations with local hockey teams and things like that, and name recognition started becoming a big player. Yeah. So that's when we changed officially to Globe Life as the primary company name. and we're moving everything underneath that umbrella versus having the six separate entities that we used to have. Um, so my role at the company is as the security operations manager. I take all the security products that we currently have in deployment,
Yep.
and I manage the group of people that not only keep those tools up and running and properly configured and operational, but also the response to anything that might be found within those tools. So one side of my team keeps our AV and EDR tool up and running, while the other side of the team looks at the events that come out of that same tool and attempts to respond to them. We've been doing this I've been doing this for 5 years. Security within the organization has really only been around for maybe 6.5, 7. We've really come a long way with standing up a solid program that can keep all the gears moving, keep everything aligned, and keep everything working at a standard, which is, again, the company had security, but it was all a secondary or tertiary role for other parts of IT versus it being a security program managed by a security team, which is what the difference is now.
Sure. So from a sort of an industry perspective, I guess, what are some of the threats or maybe trends that you're seeing that might be a little bit, specific to your vertical?
Okay. So some aspects I would not be able to divulge, but as a financial organization, which is where we classify ourselves,
Sure.
Insurance might be a special sect of that versus a bank, but it's where we classify ourselves. We really try to pay attention to what's going on with our vertical, leveraging things like FSISec, Gartner, IANS, trying to identify, where particular things are. As far as things that I see within the organization, we see a lot of SQL injection type of activity and a lot of phishing.
Okay.
So that's where we're seeing a lot of activity going on, and where we put a lot of effort into trying to do something about those.
Yeah.
We're working on making sure that we, not to use too many buzzwords, but we're trying to make sure we use artificial intelligence, machine learning, and automating our response to things. Exactly. It's like, I hate buzzwords, but it comes to a point where it becomes, that's the easiest way to communicate what it is you're trying to say.
Our new cloud IoT artificial intelligence, bring your own device.
Oh my God, you just gave me a headache. I think I don't know what I'm going to do now, but yeah, it is that kind of deal. We are trying to move to the cloud. We are trying to use machine learning and artificial intelligence. Like I said, we're trying to automate some of our response to things, because one of the core precepts of my leadership in trying to direct me on where they would like to see things go is the idea that, hey, machines think faster than humans. So if you can build into the machines how you would like to respond to certain situations,
Yeah.
and those machines can just take that action and let you know that it did it. Obviously, you're going to want a human being to come back and look at what the machine did, just for the aspect of tweaking what it might do next time, or expanding what it might do next time, or hey, it might have made a mistake because some of the logic you put in there wasn't quite right. And did you just break a business process? I don't know, but we have to look at some of those things. But we have an opportunity after the fact. We have time after the fact to take a look at that. But while it's going on, while that script kiddie, while that port scan, while that untargeted attack might be happening, the fastest response we can make is for the machine just to simply take the action and get it done.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your migration to the cloud. I'm generally curious, and I ask a lot of security leaders this when I chat with them. What are some of the the issues that you're running into, or maybe some of the aha moments you've had in terms of that migration process. And I haven't met anybody, by the way, that says, yeah, we're fully migrated 100%. It seems to be there's a long tail at the end of when you think you're done, it seems like. But
Yeah.
what are some of your perspectives on that?
So one of the things that we quickly discovered about the cloud is that if you don't get ahead of it, then people are just going to start doing what they want to do inside there. So we unfortunately didn't get ahead of it as much as we would have liked to from the very beginning. So what we discovered is that different developers, different teams would put something in the cloud and just simply make it work, not make it work with the idea of security in mind. So you wound up with various different configuration mechanisms that they were doing, S3 buckets being, exposed to the internet, settings not being set correctly, logging not being in there correctly. There's no centralized place where you could go and look at security related items, or even just what they were doing inside there. So thankfully, one of the things that AWS has really put some heavy work into is not only in the logging and security tools that they're putting out there, but also pushing everything to a centralized a control tower to allow you to make sure that anybody who does something within your organization does it under these policies and with these configurations already in place. They have no choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that was our biggest, I think, change to what we were doing and improvement to how we were doing it is now you have this top level policy that says you're going to log this. You're not going to allow external communication. Things are going to be isolated in these manners. They're going to send their information over to this central logging repository so that it can be collected in the SIM and that we can have everything that we need. And you just simply don't have a choice in this. Yeah. Because even if they elevated their privilege to then make a change that was outside of policy, the policy says, no, you can't do that, or it just reverses it right back again.
Yeah.
And so just, we're going to put you back this way because that's the policy.
Yeah.
The way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And while it's a time-consuming and difficult effort to be the police and to keep everybody in line, it is truly the only way you can secure your environment. You don't want to stop the business from doing business. You don't want to stop the creative minds from being able to discover new ways that they can get something done or get value out of what they have.
Yeah.
But they have to do it in a secure manner because we have I think the term used most often is fiduciary responsibility to protect the data and the company and the customers. So it's crucial that while we let those creative minds express themselves, they do it within the guide frame, the guidance that we've provided them, so that things can't get out of hand and things can't be missed and information can't be lost.
Yeah. And I'm guessing certainly you have all the regulatory mandates that are applicable to a financial services company, because that's what you are. But of course, healthcare providers, hospitals, labs, et cetera, have HIPAA. Healthcare sciences have the same thing with HIPAA and other regulatory mandates for pharmaceutical protections and things like that. Do you have a lot of the healthcare bits as well that you have to apply to? Does HIPAA equate into your security calculations?
I am not sure there is a regulatory body that I don't have to respond to. So HIPAA's a big player. PCI is a big player. We do what we can to try to eliminate as much of that risky data from our environment as we can, but no matter what we do, we're going to have some of that data. So one of the things that our information security group, and just so you know, in our organization, IT security and information security are technically two different organizations, but we work hand in hand to try to do it. So they're doing compliance governance, compliance, top-down policies. We do the actual implementation of those controls and ensure they're being kept. But one of the things that I really appreciate about what our information security group has done is they've said, hey, we know we got to answer to 50 different regulatory groups. Yeah. We know that states are coming up with their own stuff. We know that European Union's coming up with their own stuff. They know the federal government has its own stuff. These business groups over here have their own stuff. But what we're going to do is we're going to analyze all of them as best we can. And when one of them has a control, we're going to go with the most prescriptive version of that. Okay. So that and when I say that, what I mean is that we're going to take the most prescriptive one and we're going to apply it to everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not going to pick and choose data from New York because we have to worry about NYDFS on it. We're going to say no. NYDFS says these things that we need to take care of. And those things, oh, that's covered in PCI, or this is covered in this one, or this
California Senate bill, something else we already have, right? Yeah.
Well, whichever one is the tightest control, the most restrictive, we're just going to say, okay, that now gets applied to everything. Yeah. And so we're not going to worry about, do we meet the particular level of requirement A? We're just going to simply say, yes, we do. And it applies to anything in the environment. So California may become more prescriptive than New York, okay, in a couple of areas. Well, then in those areas, top to bottom, that's what we're doing. And New York gets their stuff too, because it's taken care of. PCI gets their stuff, it's taken care of, top down. It's really been a benefit for me because it, oddly enough, makes things simpler.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to worry about XYZ controls only being in place within this particular zone for these particular machines. It's no, everybody gets it. Yeah. Everybody's going to get that tool. Everybody's going to get that control. Everybody's going to meet this standard. Everything just simply does it.
Somewhere you must have a horrifyingly complex spreadsheet that you've mapped all these things against.
And I'm thankful again to our information security group because they manage that spreadsheet. Yeah. And every time I've looked at it, without being overly gross, I feel my eyes start to bleed and I just can't look at it any further. Yeah. But I'm thankful for them for taking that leadership role and finding that. But yes, it is, I believe they're trying to move it into more of an operational tool that they can use to manage it all. But the first, whatever 15 iterations of the thing, yes, it was just the world's most complex spreadsheet. Yeah. And it was information overload.
Yeah. How many pivot tables can you fit? Let's talk a little bit about, we touched, we've been touching on theory and regulations and things like that, but let's just take security tools and, endpoint, network, email, cloud security tools. You've been doing this here for a little over 5 years. What are some of the I'm not looking for vendor names, just types. What are some of the products types that you're finding it challenging to operationalize them, to optimize them, to ensure that you're getting value? Are there like a few that really stand out as being a little bit unruly?
Yeah, there's a few challenge areas because you really have to understand the business to be able to do some of the things that you either want to do or you're being told to do. Yeah. So one of the things that we're focused on right now is let's just concentrate on what the regulations say we have to do. Okay. We understand as security people that we want to go further than that, but there's only so much humans can do in so much time. So let's just focus on getting the regulations done. So that has reduced the scope a little bit of all the things that we're trying to do. But in the stuff that we're trying to do, I have to say that the most complicated things have to be device control. So USBs being plugged into systems. Yeah. That kind of ties in with, for a lot of technologies, the DLP mindset. You can't plug this device in because we don't want you taking this data, shoving it into that, and then walking out the door. Okay. Yeah. So that's been a very complicated thing. We actually brought in a DLP solution, and it was a catastrophe because it was mismanaged. This was before I actually arrived with the group. I was at the very tail end of seeing the the literal hell that this thing had wreaked upon the company. So DLP and that device control type of thing, that is one of the most complicated, if not the most complicated thing I've ever seen trying to be implemented. And frankly, it failed, but we're going to take another shot at it.
Okay.
Next one.
Are you sticking with the same vendor, or are you even changing vendors out there?
As it stands right now, that vendor is a curse word within the company.
Okay.
If you utter it, you might find yourself in HR. So I would seriously doubt that company has any chance of coming back. Now, with that being said, we are fairly well removed from that. Okay. And we would have a completely different process, not only for selecting what product we go through, but also the implementation of that. Those have been things that we've attempted to formalize and document and standardize in a way that it kind of takes that that personal feeling about that particular application out of the mix.
Yeah.
What you're really trying to do is quantify and analyze whether the tool does what you need it to do. And if for whatever reason that company were to be the best in that analytical process, then it actually would have a chance of coming back in, because like I said, you've taken the personal feeling out.
Sure.
And you're just simply analyzing what is the best thing for Globe Life. What is the technology that does what Globe Life needs it to do, and the way Globe Life needs it done in the most expedient and cost effective and those type of criteria. Yeah. It's just analyzing that and just take the emotion out of it.
Well, that's a very mature way to approach it. Usually it's a little bit less mature in terms of when that happens. There's a lot more kicking and screaming going on.
I'm trying really hard in this respect. Hopefully in all that I'm doing, when my management comes and takes a look at what I've done to select it, that is the feeling and the understanding they get from it. One, it's mature. Two, it's impartial. And three, it's as honest as it could possibly be. Sure. Because you're not putting your opinion into every aspect of it. You're trying to take your opinion out and just simply quantify the value of that product and for the area that you're looking at.
Yeah.
So,
yep. Yeah. Please go on. No, go on.
Okay. Yeah. There was just one other part I was going to mention is, besides the DLP portion, another thing that we took on as a challenge, which I think has been a massive undertaking, is our effort to leverage an application whitelist. And I think anybody who's tried to put an application whitelist in play understands, again, with so many aspects of the business doing business, putting one of those in place and then starting to shut down what users can put on those machines. Yeah, it's a challenge when you start trying to do that from the ground up. And again, we're deep into it, but we feel like we're getting to a really good spot with it. So.
Yeah, and you very quickly find out how diverse your user base is when you start looking at folks in marketing and then folks in engineering and things like that, right? Yeah. That's I've been part of some organizations that have done similar things, and there's a few things in this world that can make users really upset. Printers not working, maybe not getting their paycheck on time. I would put doing whitelisting incorrectly on that list of things that can really upset people. Right. So yeah, I feel you on that one. So let's talk a little bit about security effectiveness and how you're measuring and validating your controls, and maybe you can share a couple of use cases and maybe some approaches you've taken, or some things that went right, went wrong, whatever you'd like to share.
Okay. Again, what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to quantify these things in a non-emotional fashion. Like I said, it's tough to do because you're passionate about what you're doing, but for certain things, you have to take the emotion out of it and just simply look at the numbers. Yeah. So we've actually we have an organization within the company that does data science. And we, as IT security and actually throughout IT operations, we've been trying to use that same data science tool and mindset to look at what we're doing and how well we're doing it. It's really difficult to try to figure out, because you have to find good questions to ask that can then be referenced and answered by the data you have. And in some cases, you're trying to find ways to bring more data into the environment so that you can get the answers to those questions. Okay. So I've been trying to work on reporting, with my number one goal being right now compliance. Just simply, here's the list of things that are supposed to be done and on every machine in the environment. So how good are we at actually accomplishing this?
Yeah.
So go take a look at every single asset. Use your CMBD. Use your vulnerability management tools. Use your own, those tools themselves. Their reporting data. Try to bring all of that together to figure out, am I doing what I'm supposed to do on all the machines that are out there? So if I'm supposed to have anti-malware, if I'm supposed to have the application whitelist, I'm supposed to have this particular configuration setting, all the patches applied to it. If I'm supposed to be doing all these things, then somewhere out there, there's a data set that you can look at that's going to tell you if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing by all those machines.
Yeah.
And you have to bring all of that data in, run some transformations on it, done some calculations on it, and then you can look at it and you can say, hey, within the environment, I'm 98% compliant with the deployment of my anti-malware solution. Okay, well, 98% compliant is great, but you're supposed to be at 100. So take that gap, take that remaining 2%, and let's start remediating those items, validating or identifying false positives, doing whatever you need to do to resolve that. And it becomes a repeating cycle of effort. You collect all the data to analyze, run the report, you find things where you have gaps, where you're missing something, then you take that into an operational task, which your team members then take and try to resolve by looking at those machines and figuring out what the problem is. Maybe that particular tool, the service got corrupted and you need to do a reinstall, or this particular tool, you need to fix a WMI issue because it couldn't report in correctly, even though it was there. There's a wide variety of tasks you might have to do, but the end result is you're validating your compliance on a regular basis, you're remediating your gap on a regular basis, and then you're re-evaluating your compliance. Yeah. And if you make that a cycle that continually goes on, and it's just simply part of what your operational team does on a weekly, monthly, daily, whatever basis, yeah, then even when you have gaps, you can show, we understand the gap is there. We constantly are working to fix it. Here's all the proof that any auditor might need, that we recognize the problem and are working on it consistently. Yep. And it really does something that I truly enjoy, which is shut an auditor up. They can't say anything after you've provided them all that, because you say, no, look, here, we identify every problem. Here's all these tickets where people are working on it. Here's all the rescans that we did showing that we improved. Here's where we've identified a new asset that came into the environment. Here's where we put a ticket in to remediate that as well. Yeah. So what else do you want from us? Because perfection is not possible. Yeah. All we can do is constantly show an effort and desire to improve. And that's what we're doing through those numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, a big part of security for so long was placating auditors, or to your point, shutting them up, right? And if you can do that at the same time that you're actually making real forward progress and increasing security, all the better, right?
Yeah, and it's sad because it's never ending. You're never truly going to shut them up, and you're never truly going to be done with them.
Yeah.
It's never ending. They'll always be coming back. So the hope is that through this process and by doing these tasks, it's not that I won't have to talk to them. It's just that they won't have as much to say, and they won't be saying it for as long. The audit won't be as long or drawn out or painful
Yeah.
because the process answers the question for them.
Yeah. One of the things I've seen a lot of folks do, again, this goes back into our cloud conversation, using Veridin. Well, now it's Mandiant Security Validation, but using that platform to help sort of monitor segmentation in the cloud, especially as S3 buckets are popping up, and to make sure that the WAF and then the application web server, then the next generation firewall, then the backend database, and all these things are actually properly ordered. Because as you know, in the cloud, it's very easy, but it's also very powerful, and that database could accidentally be on the wrong side of that segmentation, right? And it's fully exposed with customer information that's sensitive and other PII. Is doing security effectiveness validation, and whether it's the controls or the segments, is that something that you've started doing in the cloud now as well?
All right. So our cloud capabilities in that space are actually a little limited at the moment. It is definitely where we want to see this go.
Yeah.
Because what we have seen in, if we go back to my statement about shutting auditors up, is that constant validation is exactly what will do that, exactly what will give us the information and the knowledge to not only resolve issues quickly and efficiently, but also provide proof to those who would challenge you on if you're doing that, that you are doing that because you have built in the process. So while the tool is only a portion of it, it is a critical portion that I feel like we're going to take and expand even further than what we currently have it. So while I don't feel like today we have as much of that cloud infrastructure set up to do that constant and continuous validation, it is definitely a goal that we want to move towards. And as we get the money necessary to do so, we're going to push to get that done.
Yeah. Well, automation is such a big part of that. And you mentioned that a little bit earlier, just the need to be able to automate, especially to reach scale. And now you're adding cloud, and you've got all these other organizations underneath the larger umbrella. So it's very expansive. Has automation delivered in terms of, is it actually reducing the amount of time that analysts have to have eyes on screen, and reducing incident response windows and things like that? Is it delivering on the promise of what automation was supposed to do, which was making the lives of people like you and your team better, faster, easier?
I think it is. I think particularly with what we're trying to do, that we can very clearly see where automation has allowed us to advance things and move forward. Nice. Like I said, we're moving into the realm of automated responses, and we're seeing how that has benefited us through various different internal testing that we've done, third-party pen testing that we've done. Again, nobody is perfect, and I don't claim to be. What I do claim though is that by leveraging the technology that we put in place, which we had a really rigorous evaluation process to try to determine which technology was the best one for us.
Yeah.
By seeing those technologies, by implementing those technologies correctly, and by automating as much of that as we can, we have definitely seen that. Frankly, we've definitely seen an improvement in the life of our workers because we don't have to have, a 40-hour FTE working an average of 55 or 60 hours just to get everything done.
Just to get by, yeah.
Yeah, that FTE can do his 40 hours, do his checks, and there's only that rare occasion where we have to pull them in to do extra stuff because some gap was identified. But even when we identify that gap, we always look to how can we take this lesson that we just learned and pull this into our automation so that we can ensure that it's being done. And then what I'm asking the humans to do after we've gotten into the automation is just simply validate that the automation is doing what it's supposed to do,
Sure.
that it continues to do what it's supposed to do, and make any adjustments to what it's doing to help enhance, everything else that we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And given that there is a considerable shortage of qualified IT security personnel to call upon, it is critical that you're able to automate and expedite a lot of that work being done, so that your staff doesn't have to be 100 people just trying to do all this stuff. If we didn't have the automation, I think at one point we estimated we might need 25 people down in our SOC just trying to do all this, and literally they're 24/7. So we're trying to staff people for Saturdays, and we're trying to staff people for overnight, and things get a lot more complicated with that, because people want to have a life. They want to enjoy the life they have. They want to take this unfortunate COVID environment and be able to spend it with their family, because they recognize how important that life outside of work really is.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
You mentioned COVID, and in the middle of COVID-19 and the lockdowns and people working from home, and a lot of investment being made in beefing up VPN infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. Has that impacted automation? Has it impacted your ability to sort of measure security effectiveness and just sort of continue on in the best possible format? Or have we gotten to the point now where the technology is so mature, if people are working from home or working from the office, they can pretty much still do the same level of work, in some cases maybe even better? Are you seeing that balance out, getting better, decreasing? What's your hot take?
So our rollout and movement from a fully in office to a fully work from home situation, I really have to applaud the IT operations side of things, because they did a fantastic job. It went smoothly. Again, no claims about perfection, but I don't know that you could ask for a much more efficient and smooth movement to a fully work from home thing. Now, in doing so, we discovered that, there was a few gaps in how we did things or how we collected data, that once you move to a work from home environment, it becomes far too dependent on that VPN connection being there. You could no longer see certain data because the tool that provides you that data was only meant to work on network. So you had to be VPN or directly connected to our network for us to be able to look at that. So it opened the door for us to look at how we were doing stuff, to then leverage the cloud to provide communication that didn't necessarily have to have that VPN to go about it. But even in those areas, we were still working in a highly efficient and highly functional way. We just decided that, yeah, we can do this work from home thing, no problem, but we just need to make a couple of adjustments so that we're sure that even if that user is not on VPN, we still know what's going on fully with that box. Okay. Sure. Some tools, some agents, the policy goes down to the endpoint.
Yep.
But if you want to update that policy, it has to be able to connect back to the central servers to be able to know there's an update available.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that means that you can only update that machine if and when they are going to get on the VPN.
Sure.
And we have, we have users that in some of the things that we do, they don't have to get on the VPN to be able to accomplish those, So,
and you don't want 1,000 users all doing a 1 gigabyte update from your over the VPN at the same time, right? There's all these
exactly. Here it is, 8:00 in the morning on Monday, and all these people who haven't been connected, they just pop in,
Yeah.
And here's comes all this data that
Yeah.
they start pulling down.
Yeah.
All of the patches, all of the updates, all the policies, the new installs, whatever. They just start pulling it all through that VPN connection because there was no other way to see that machine over the weekend when you would normally do some of this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and that includes stuff like your vulnerability scans. All of those things would have to wait to happen for that machine to be on VPN for us to have a chance of touching that machine and seeing, hey, there we go, we got something we need to go work on.
You mentioned auditors a little bit earlier, but I'm wondering when you're going through and you're measuring security effectiveness, when you're optimizing tools, when you're going through all these disparate steps, besides you and your team consuming the data because you need to operationally, and then of course you mentioned before sharing that data with auditors. What are some of the other groups in the organization that are taking an interest in this, whether it's in security, like red teams or blue teams, or outside of security, executives, board members? Are you seeing a broad interest in sort of these measures that can quantify how is security working and are we improving, or is it sort of still in that IT sec kind of realm?
There are people in our company with titles and job roles that I never thought I would be interacting with when it comes to what's going on with some of these things.
Yeah.
People with officers in their title, board members, seeing some of the stuff that we're putting out there. So it's a real challenging thing because you as an operational person, frankly, in my case, at the bottom end of this totem pole, trying to figure out what to do with this data and how to use it, you have a completely different need of visibility and depth into that data than that officer, that CIO, the CTO, the board member, whatever, than what they do. But you have to configure this data for the consumption of all. Okay. Now, the presentation of the data, that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But underneath the presentation, underneath the pretty graphs or the trend lines or things like that, you have to be able to look at the core of what's going on. So through that analytics that we've been talking about, that data scientist type of work, we're trying to put the data into a quickly consumable, understandable method. Yep. So that when those executive officers want to look at where we stand with stuff, they can look at a simple line graph, a simple pie chart, a simple number that reflects where we stand with things. But if they want to, and I hope that they don't have to spend too much time doing this, they can click down and click through and start getting deeper and deeper and deeper into what's going on, down to the point where they can say, I can see Brian's machine and he doesn't have all the security tools on it because I got a calculation that shows Brian's compliance with X, Y, and Z that must be done. So if they wanted to come all the way down to that particular endpoint and figure out what's going on, but the way it's initially presented is no, you just need to see the high end side of things. We were at 95% compliant last month. We're at 96% compliant this month. Improvement. There you go. Yeah.
It's funny. I've asked similar questions like this to people just kind of over the years when meeting with people and having lunch with them and whatever. And I would say probably about 5 years ago and before, that wasn't the case. There was very limited sort of exposure at the executive level, especially through different non-technical, non-security teams, even less so at the board, maybe some from the auditors, but even then the auditors didn't, the audit committee wasn't necessarily that powerful of a group. A lot's changed in these last 5 years, though, as more CEOs and board members and shareholders and things like that, they're going on the news. They're talking about cybersecurity because they have to, because it's a potential material risk. They're putting cybersecurity statements in their 10K annual reports, committee charters, corporate governance documents. It's becoming key, and I think part of it is they wanted to because they knew it was becoming more critical, and the other part is they kind of have to. So it's great that somebody like you, with the tools that you have access to, can actually measure and give them those quantitative juxtaposed to qualitative metrics. Like, instead of saying, well, we follow best practices, we do patching, we do vulnerability scanning. Instead, you can actually say, this is what's working, this is what's not working, here's the gap, and this is where we need to focus and prioritize. Because once you can have a conversation like that and share a report, I think it's like going to the CFO and saying how much money's in the bank, or going to the COO and saying, how effective are we operationally, and sort of meeting our customer requirements and demands. So that to me is a huge maturation and sort of a strategic approach to security. And it's really cool to see that you guys are sort of in the thick of that, and that executive team is taking that level of interest.
Yeah, and I really do appreciate that they have, and I really do appreciate my leadership's focus on trying to make it like that, trying to use the data to justify the request instead of, like I said, the request just simply being based off of, well, I want this, or here's my gut feeling about things. It's like, no, here's data that says this is what we need to do. Here's a regulation that says we need to do it.
Yeah.
Here's data that says we're going to get this value out of it, or this is going to help us accomplish this goal. But it's a very quantitative and directed approach at figuring out what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, and presenting that argument up the chain so that you get the support, the buy-in, and the money to do so, versus, like I said, the old days of you just walking into their office and saying, man, I really would like it if we could get tool X.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let me put together some pricing for you. Let's go buy these guys and let's get this done.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes this emotional argument that you don't always win and you can't always get what you need. And if we can change the way we do that, I think we can just simply say,
That
no, look,
almost sounded like a Rolling Stones song.
it did. It actually went through my head. I just decided not to finish the line.
But
So
try real hard, you'll get what you need.
yeah. But yes, if we do these things,
Yeah.
If we bring in that empirical evidence, that detached data, that non-emotional request, and just simply say, this is what we need.
Yep.
This is why we need it. Okay. You're either being compelled to do this by a regulatory body, or you're doing this because of your own so like a mission statement regarding IT security. We have a mission statement regarding that, and we're saying, you stated in your mission statement that you wanted us to be in this place. To get to this place, based off the data that we have, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
If we do this, then we should show this type of improvement, or this type of resolution of some gap within the controls.
Yep.
And we should get closer to that place you said you wanted to be.
Yeah.
And again, it's just simply a less emotional way of going about it, but it gets you where you need to go, there. It requires patience. It requires a sound argument and data to back it up.
Yep.
But once you have those, and once you put that in place, I have found that as long as I bring that information to my boss and I've laid it out there like that, that he hasn't said no to what we've needed.
Yeah.
And that's a much better feeling than the constant, yeah, we're not going to do that. That's too much money. Because as you know, security tools are not cheap. So when you ask for a new security tool, that's some fairly large checks that need to be written for you to get that tool and put it in place. So it's best to come with the data to back up the need than just simply, here's the price tag and look how many commas I was able to put in it,
Yeah. No, good point. Good point. Well, Stephen, as we wrap up here, this is sort of the crystal ball portion. I'd love to get your perspective on, where you think threats are moving, maybe overall or specific to your industry, and sort of how the security industry is going to be responding to those. And it was really interesting. I asked you at the beginning a little bit about the threats, and you mentioned, phishing and unfortunately SQL injection, which even 10 years ago when I was at Imperva, I go, boy, when are we going to be done talking about SQL injection and cross-site request forgeries and cross-site scripting and business logic attacks? I bet we're almost done with that. I don't know if it's ever going to be done because there's got to be 10,000 CVEs for SQL injection out there. Do parameter input validation. I don't know. Anyways, but tell me a little bit about where you think the threats are going and in the future, and maybe how you see the industry responding to those threats.
Wow, that is a extremely complex question. I'm not sure my expertise fits in the best way to answer that one, but it's amazing to me because what the actors are using out there, the way they're getting into things, a lot of the times it's not about finding a 0 day. It's about the fact that vulnerability has been sitting out there for 3 years and you still haven't done anything about it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I'm just going to keep using it. When you're not talking about the state-sponsored type of actor,
yeah.
What it really comes down to is they're going to try to find the easiest way to get to what they want.
Yeah.
So if we did a better job and a cleaner job of doing the basic tasks that need to be done, then what we're doing is the best we can do, which is making it as difficult for them as possible.
Yeah, it's an economics issue at that point, right?
Yeah.
How much time and effort, yeah.
So, and I have maybe a little bit of a cynical view when it comes to this, but if I make their job harder,
yeah,
they're either going to move on to the next guy,
yep,
okay, or well, it's possible that if they truly want into my systems, that they'll just keep fighting.
Yeah,
but in my estimation, most of that is going to be they're going to get bored. They're going to move on to the next guy, or they're going to spend so long and come at you so hard trying to get through the difficulties that you put in place in front of them that you're going to be able to spot them.
Yeah.
Okay. So then it becomes the matter of getting them out of your system as quickly as you can.
Sure.
But that's where I see security right now, which is I'm going to make it as difficult as I can for you to get into my systems. And if I make it difficult enough for you to get in, then my hope is I'll spot you trying, and then I can take some action to shut you down.
Yeah. Okay. I actually think you're, first of all, I think you're very well suited to answer that. And I think that was a great response because all too often you hear about this 0 day or this APT or some new lagging indicator of compromise that was based on some new threat intelligence out of this part of the world or whatever. That's all well and good. Those are things we need to worry about. But I think you said it best. Look, there's a lot of basic stuff. SQL injection has been around for 20 plus years. There's a lot of stuff out there. If we have security tools that are in place to be designed and we're paying for these tools to stop these things, most of what we need to be focused on is making sure that the tools we have are doing what they're supposed to be doing to go ahead and mitigate these risks. And then if we automate that, to your points earlier, then we can put that extra effort, because now we have some extra time, into some of those far reaching or more advanced areas that we need to focus on. And I actually think that's the great approach, because it's a business approach. It's an economic approach to this issue.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been trying to do, and that is my hope, is that like I said, through automating a lot of this work, we can get our analysts out of the business of just simply looking at this alert or that alert or whatever, just eyes on glass and watching SIM events scroll through when you're trying to pick stuff out. I want to get them out of that field, because I've automated as much as that as I possibly can, and I want to move them into an advanced form of analytics, the threat hunting type of work.
Yeah.
Now I need you I want you and need you to go through our data and look for anomalies, look for problems, look for things that might indicate that somebody got past the automated things, and now you need to take an additional step or action and help get them out of the environment.
Yeah. Well, my takeaway on that was, from a threat perspective, more of a focus on the economics of the issue, And from an industry perspective, then leveraging the fact that you're doing that to improve the people that you have and the processes they follow, and sort of the more strategic things that they're doing instead of these more bits and bytes tactical pieces that sometimes still have to be done. But if you can reduce the load, I mean, to me, this is exactly where we need to go as an industry. We need to be able to have our really smart security people doing really smart security things, as opposed to stuff that we could kind of automate away.
Right.
And to be frank, we need to automate it away, because there's simply, to your point, you're not going to have a SOC with 25 people, and now you have to have 250 people, and then next month you have to have 2,000, because there's so much data. And to detect these attacks and do this analysis, you'd need so many eyeballs without it. So to me, it's a foregone conclusion that the approach that you're recommending, or theorizing, is where we need to be. I really think it's the next evolution of sort of strategic security. So I appreciate that.
If you watch the technology that's coming out there and you watch what they're doing with it, they're trying to give you more and more visibility into your environment. But the more and more visibility you have in your environment, the more likely you're going to see the bad person doing the bad thing.
Yeah.
But you also have to have some way of looking through all of that to have a chance of seeing the bad person doing the bad thing. You can't just leave it to chance. You have to have those rules about what it is that we expect to see, what it is that is normal for the environment, get that noise out of my way, and only bring to my attention the things that are abnormal and that have not been defined, so that I can define those. Or if it turns out that is malicious actions being taken, I can get rid of it. I can get
managed by exception, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, do it that way. No, I love it.
The more visibility we have, the more automation we have to respond to it, because there's no way a human can just look through all of that data and hope to get something reasonable out of it.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Well, Stephen, thank you so much. As always, it's a pleasure to talk with you, and I'm glad you're able to shave off some time from your day to share your ideas with our audience.